Good morning. Good morning. Our reading today comes from the prophet Amos, chapter 5, verses 18 through 24. The prophets often speak harsh words of condemnation when the times call for it. They call us to see things honestly, especially in terms of injustice and oppression. Today's readings are no different as we hear God through Amos talk about the importance, not of religious acts and worship services and prayers, but of doing real justice when people are hurting. Hear these words from Amos. Woe to you who long for the day of the Lord! Why do you long for the day of the Lord? That day will bring darkness, not light. It will be as though a man fled from a lion only to meet a bear, as though he entered his house and rested his hand on the wall only to have a snake bite him. Will not the day of the Lord be darkness, not light, pitch dark, without a ray of brightness? I despise your religious festivals. Your assemblies are a stench to me. Even though you bring me burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. Though you bring choice fellowship offerings, I have no regard for them. Away with the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the music of your harps, but let justice roll like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. In these words, the anger of God at injustice shines forth.
It's going to work, isn't it?
When I was growing up, I was taught in American history books that Africa had no history, and neither did I. That I was a savage, about whom the less said the better, who had been saved by Europe and brought to America. And of course, I believed it. I didn't have much choice. Those are the only books there were. I am stating very seriously, and this is not an overstatement, that I picked the cotton, and I carried its market, and I built the railroads under someone else's whip for nothing. For nothing. If one has got to prove one's title to the land, isn't 400 years enough? 400 years, at least 3 wars. The American soil is full of the corpses of my ancestors. Why is my freedom or my citizenship or my right to live there, how is it conceivably a question now? What we are not facing is the results of what we've done. What one begs the American people to do for all our sakes is simply to accept our history until the moment comes when we, the Americans, we, the American people, we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other. Until this moment, there is scarcely any hope for the American dream, because the people who are denied participation in it, by their very presence, will wreck it.
What we are not facing is the result of what we've done. What one begs the American people to do for all our sakes is to simply accept our history until the moment comes when we, the American people, we're trying to forge a new identity in which we need each other. James Baldwin. James Baldwin, just saw American author, poet, playwright, and social critic, spoke those words in a debate at the prestigious Oxford Union at Oxford University in Cambridge in the year 1965, as he debated the father of the conservative movement, William F. Buckley, about the so-called American dream and about being black in America. Now, Baldwin represented the fight for civil rights and a critique of America amidst segregation and the full integration of American society. This is what he spoke to. Buckley, on the other hand, great William F. Buckley, according to History.com, I pulled this gem off that website, had been opposed to the enforcement of the 1954 Brown v. Board of Education decision, the March on Washington, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. He also referred to James Baldwin as the eloquent menace, setting up a grand showdown in Cambridge. End quote. The eloquent menace. So to set the stage a bit, the Oxford Union debates had for decades, since their very first debate in their creation in 1823. Think about that, how long it's been going on. That Oxford Union debate has been the epicenter of some really powerful debates and conversations from leading voices from all around the world on a whole variety of really important and relevant topics. They still are that to this very day. And this debate between Baldwin and Buckley in 1965 surely has gone down in history as one of the most powerful, with most people, even Buckley himself, really claiming that he lost. He lost that debate. He admits it, but he says he came out with his head held high. Oh, whatever. You lost. Came out with your tail tucked between your legs, too. So that was obviously early on. As Baldwin finished, in the tape, that was early on, as Baldwin finished his part of 15 minutes, each got 15 minutes, and part of that, which you just saw there, he received a rousing standing ovation by a crowd of hundreds of mainly white people. I think there were two black folks in the audience, and one of them was a dear friend of his. But he received this rousing and long time standing ovation. It said standing ovations on this stage, this highly regarded debate stage, were extremely rare. They just weren't something that happened, but Baldwin received the fullest of one, even as he looked shocked. As he, amidst all the standing and the clapping crowd, he really looked shocked. He did not expect this. So the American dream, it became clear to those standing participants that were clapping away, well, they heard the case, and it wasn't really all that evenly distributed. And James Baldwin had made his case profoundly through his personal reflection, his rousing oratory, calming oratory, I love that about him, and an honest look at the historical picture of America and its history. So I encourage you, if you haven't seen this full debate, it's about an hour, a little over, just go to the Google IHOP it, whatever you do, look up the Baldwin-Buckley debate in 1965 and enjoy one heck of a showdown and the unwavering courage of one prophet named James Baldwin. I wanted to share that clip and a bit of that debate because, for one, we're journeying into February, which is also known as Black History Month, a month dedicated towards celebrating the contributions and lives of black Americans to society and to culture. And we hear a lot of names pop up this month. We heard Rosa Parks yesterday, right, on her 110th birthday, would have been. So we celebrated her yesterday. You're going to hear about Maya Angelou, I think, in many places this month, and Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass, Barack Obama, MLK, Malcolm X, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, a couple favorites, musicians of mine, and probably Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald, right? Maybe a little Porgy and Bess. All of these amazing lives and so many more black lives will no doubt be celebrated along with black history in general as an intricate and essential part of the American experience. Don't ever let anyone tell you it's not. You know who those people are. It is. So I wish you all a wonderful Black History Month. I hope it's a great month for us here. The second reason I wanted to show you that clip is because of what Baldwin actually said, especially that line I highlighted about looking honestly at American history and accepting it as American history. I'm guessing most of you have seen the news of one overreaching governor of Florida, who remain nameless, who's actually done exactly what Baldwin said we should never, ever do, attempt to write over or forget an important part of our history. In this case, we're talking about African American history, and more specifically the AP, the Advanced Placement African American History course, a wide-ranging course that focuses to take students on a journey from great African kingdoms and African lands in history, through the kidnapping, murder, and forced labor of Africans, through America's original sin, as some call it, the forced labor of slavery, enslavement of African people, through the Civil War, through construction, through segregation, through civil rights, African American cultural movements, contributions to society, right up to more recent times like Black feminist movements and Black Lives Matter. I know you've heard of that, right? And Black gender identity, and more historical and cultural Black movements that are an intricate and important part of this nation's history. That is what that course covered in a nutshell. That's what that course covered. Wide-ranging course. I spent last week poring over all sorts of details of it, reading syllabuses and expectations and content, and I got to tell you, that's a great course. I want to take this course in its fullest. I don't want the whitewash version. I want the full course. And actually, this course had been redesigned. Did you know that? By scholars recently. Redesigned federally, and is now widely accepted by scholars of history, including prominent African American scholars. And it was presented earlier this year, but apparently, when someone got a hold of it, it just contained a little too much truth. As we all know from the great movie, some people can't handle the truth. So the governor of this state, shall remain nameless, had some problems with it. Given the status of the Stop Woke bill that was signed into law last year, you've all heard of that one, right? Which prohibits any curriculum or instruction that suggests a person's, quote, status as either privileged or oppressed is necessarily determined by his race or her race, color, national origin, or sex. That's what the Stop Woke Act means. So our governor believed that AP African American History course went against the spirit of his own abhorrent and awful, cruel law, so he threatened to ban it in its entirety unless the whole course was reworked. Well, the overseeing body in the state of Florida called the College Board, they've been in the news lately, melted to the political whims of a governor looking to throw red meat to his base, and the whole curriculum was revised, reworked, and stripped of anything that appeared to be woke or that prompted any notions of systemic injustice, and especially purged ideas and voices from Black feminist authors and historians and Black LGBT voices as well. Stripped right out of there. Don't need those. For instance, among the people you'll no longer find in AP American History, it's one of the very first books I read in seminary by the author Bell Hooks. You won't find Bell Hooks any longer, one of the most profound Black feminist American voices in history. She spoke hard truths, but apparently, again, truth is not what some people in the state want when it comes to history. So Bell Hooks is out, along with many other prominent, great scholars. Now, I would rather today, for this kickoff sermon on Black History Month 2023, I'd rather be lifting up Black history in terms of celebrating it, in terms of how interwoven it is, again, with American history overall, how you cannot celebrate one without the other, and how awesome and exciting Black history is to explore. But this year, it appears obvious that Black history is under assault, more so than it has ever been before. And we are amidst a movement in this nation to purge not only Black history, but so many other histories as well, given not only the banning of high school and college courses, but the dangerous and downright cruel book banning movements that have arisen in this state and in this nation in these incredibly confusing and trying days. Now, I just, in fact, read a list of books removed from school libraries in Duval County, Florida, last week, books which were part of a list called the Essential Voices Library Collection. Sounds like something I'd want to go meander on over to, right? Well, of course, there were a lot of African-American authors on that list. I know you won't be shocked, right? And other titles. I mean, The Gift of Ramadan. The Gift of Ramadan is on that list. My Two Moms is on that list. And the follow-up to that, My Two Dads, also on that list. Or how about Crazy Horse's Vision is on that list. Or Dim Sum for Everyone. I mean, come on. You can't make this up. They're all on, and there's 170 more of them on this list. And there's something about each one of them, and I can't quite put my finger on it. What do you think it is? Can you help me? What would all those books have in common in the Essential Voices Library Collection? I can't put my finger on it. But it's obvious we're definitely going through some kind of dangerous craziness in this nation right now, centered fully in fear, misunderstanding, judgment, and politics, right? When these things collide, as we're living in the midst of right now, watch the heck out. Watch out and pay attention. So I wanted you to hear the words from James Baldwin, one of this nation's great lovers and powerful critics, because as he was saying, when we omit or disregard aspects of the history of our nation with all its warts and its glaring oppressions and its sins and crimes, well, we omit and disregard particular peoples of this nation and their stories and render their stories as incomplete and really unnecessary, and generally do so because their history in conjunction with America is replete with oppression and the denial of rights and overall humanity. For factions of America, especially those who live with all the privilege that America affords them, us, well, being truthful about our history is seen as kind of like wallowing in guilt. Have you heard that on the news? Well, I don't want to make people feel guilty, We're good people, we tell ourselves, and for whom things like slavery and segregation and other of America's original sins are just too off the table of discussion because they are, quote unquote, in the past. And I wasn't here then, and I didn't have anything to do with that, right? We weren't around then, so what do I got to do with this? So why burden good people of today, and why push this so-called woke agenda on everyone? I hear that all the time. Well, the answer to that is just to deny history then. It's to take it out of curriculums like we're seeing and only teach the stuff that makes you feel good. Makes us feel good and conforms to what the dominant narratives of culture are, as shaped by the voices with the power to shape it, right? Like our governor. Well, what does that get us in the end? It gets us what Baldwin described, that he thought he was a savage. That's what he was taught. He absorbed that into himself. That's what that gets us. And he said he thought that because that's what the books and the courses of the time taught him. That's what history was presented to him as. But there was a whole other history out there that wasn't being told. It was being hidden. One that taught him the fullness of his humanity. Unfortunately, he had to uncover that himself, and thank God he did, because he left us a powerful voice to always examine our history honestly, because only then can we begin the process of forging a more powerful sense of togetherness as a nation. That's what the prophets did. The one Natalie just read for us, with all that gusto, Natalie, that was a great reading. We could have heard any countless, I just randomly picked Amos. It could have been any of the prophets today. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Hosea, Mary, Micah, Ezekiel, and others. And we could have heard any of them because their job, time and time again, was to rise up and to preach words of challenge to their nation. In this case, Israel and Judah, when the nation was out of accord. They didn't hide from the sins of their nation. They didn't sweep them under the rug. They didn't keep it quiet. in case some folks, especially those in power, might feel bad or feel a bit guilty. No, they didn't do that. No, they screamed out the truths of the injustices of their nation and called the people to account for participating in them, injustices that all too often harm the poor, the immigrant, and the oppressed. You heard it. Woe to you who disregard the people. They would scream out, woe to you who turn your back on the needy. Woe to you who steal people's lands and houses. Woe to you who harm your neighbor. Woe to you who harm the immigrant and the person from a foreign land. Woe to you, nation, who has not been honest about your abuses and your treatments of people in your land. Woe to you. Whew. Time and again, the prophets called the people to accountability and interpreted their country's disastrous history at times in terms of the ways in which the people treated one another, especially the poorest and the oppressed and the marginalized, those whose histories are swept under the rug. The prophets called for an honest reckoning on how people were treated, and we need much more of the same today, as we are collectively editing certain wrongs right out of our history books and their courses, and right off our library shelves, and right out of school book collections. If it makes us politically uncomfortable, you know what we do? Let's just ban it, right? Get rid of it, of its current train of thought, rather than let's do what Baldwin said and accept it, learn from it, and pledge never to repeat it, and seek a stronger sense of togetherness that overcomes all wrongs. The prophets can teach us so much, and one of those I'm proclaiming today is James Baldwin. We need him today. And one final thing, and this is really a rant today. Just kind of came out yesterday, and I went and found a scripture text to match it. Not supposed to do that according to seminary. One final thing, I think this is really the center and core of this whole backlash and against honestly teaching history. I mean, really, it's a word that you hear over and over again in the media, either for good or for ill. And that word is woke. Ooh, I got an ooh. Woke. Is it so bad? Woke. It's at the heart of every decision, the very decision to cut the AP African American History course and the latest efforts to empty our libraries of any issue having to do with the acknowledgement of injustice toward some segment or group of the American population that has suffered discrimination or oppressions. Apparently that word is woke. Why, I ask, is this word so threatening? Are you threatened by woke? It's a four-letter word. Why is this so threatening? I went to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, where I go all the time when I wanted to find my words. They define woke as aware of and actively attentive to important facts and issues, especially issues of racial and social justice. They also said this about the word woke. Stay woke became a watchword in parts of the black community for those who were self-aware, questioning the dominant paradigm and striving for something better, end quote. Questioning the dominant paradigm, striving for something better. That's what it means to be woke? What's so threatening about that? Why is that so threatening? I mean, under that definition, the prophets I just referenced, oh my God, they were woke, weren't they? You know someone else that was pretty dang woke? Jesus himself, who questioned all forms of social dominance. He was woke as heck. Heck. To be woke, a term that leaves some people curled up in the fetal position in bed, is a liberating, freeing, societally challenging, oppression-lifting, and equity-giving, and just way of living in the world and advocating for the fullness of the freedom and the rights for all people, especially those whose histories have not been the dominant ones, but who experienced oppression along the way. Now, we should all be proud to be woke. Yes. For it means we hear those are suffering and will walk a path with them until they are not, no matter how hard we have to look in the mirror and look honestly at our own history and ourselves in the midst of it and accept it. So wokeness is really, at its core, an honesty movement where we answer Baldwin's call to accept our history and not hide it and hope it just goes away. So don't buy into the political fear-mongering when it comes to being woke. but be like the best of the prophets and others who embraced it and made it central to their faith and to their identity. Be woke. There is really no other way to be. Now, I mean, if I'm woke because I see systemic racism, kind Baldwin was speaking of, and I want to help overcome it, if that makes me woke, well then damn it, I own it. I'm woke. If I strive to support my LGBT sisters and brothers who live their lives with fullness and freedom and equality, and that makes me woke, well then heck yeah, I'm woke. I respect people's use of pronouns, their chosen pronouns they use to, which gets people just all up in arms for some reason. Tucker Carlson, that they use to identify themselves. Well, then if I accept that and I advocate for that, and that makes me woke, then I'm proud. If I see the reality of climate change, I want to address it, and that makes me woke, dang it, so be it, I'm woke. If I want to advocate for people just to be who they are, created to be, and love who they want to love, and if that makes me woke, I'm guilty as charged. I'm not afraid of a label that includes within it all the hopes and dreams and equality and equity and love and compassion that the world needs so much more of. I'm woke, and I own it. And I think if more of us can not run from that term, but say it and own it and mean it and live it, well, we can change this world for the better. So are you with me? Are you woke? Yes! Come on, say it. I am woke! I am woke! It feels good to be awake. It feels even better to be woke. Congratulations. On this first Sunday of Black History Month, or as soon as it will probably be known in Florida by decree of the governor, All History Matters Month. It's coming. Let us celebrate the contributions to America of our African American sisters and brothers like James Baldwin and so many others. Let this month remind ourselves not to run from our history, not to run from denying it so we can, not to run from it, but to run from denying it so we can use it to begin to create understanding and forgiveness, reconciliation, yes, maybe even reparation, and a stronger sense of togetherness, just as James Baldwin said, like the prophets said, and always, as we know, like that woke man from 2,000 years ago said, Jesus. This month can heal us, but only if we enter it honestly and leave the whitewashing out. History is multi-hued and a beautiful tapestry of color and diversity after all, and if that is too woke of a statement for some, well, get over it. Be woke, my friends. Happy Black History Month. Amen.